Here we go, friends and family. Welcome to part 7 of the reading and use of English paper. Now, this is the third and final reading passage. It is the last part of the 7 tasks you have to do. Now, a few quick questions. How many questions are there? There are 10 questions. How many marks? You can get 10 marks. How many texts do we have to read? It's one long passage or 5 short passages, basically, paragraphs it could be. How many options can we choose from? 4 or 5 options. You have plenty of options to choose from. We will look at that in more detail now. Okay, so now you obviously have many more options right here. So now this would be the passage, for example. Okay, it is about a single topic, a rising star. You've got the title. Okay, and then let's look at the different strategies we need to apply here. Before, understand that basically what you have to do is you have 1, 2, 3, 4 options. 1, 2, 3, 4 A, B, C, D options. And you have to fill in, for example, this is the question. These are all the questions. And you would write in 43 A or B or C or D. And you would continue this process until you have filled all of the questions in. Okay, so now you can repeat. You can have A in different options, in different questions, B in different questions. All these questions match a paragraph. You have to connect them. Now, moving on. Okay, so you have all these questions. What you have to do, as always, is underline the key words. It's very important. Okay, I'm going to give you a moment to underline the key words. Okay, now as long as I need to read through it, when I'm done reading through it, we will continue to look at the key words. Okay, so you don't need any more time than that. That was the time. As you read, you underline the keywords. So in theory, now you should have all the keywords underlined in the test. Okay, great. So here are my keywords. States how surprised the writer was at Duncan's early difficulties. Surprised, early difficulties, those are my 2 keywords. Now, says that Duncan sometimes seems much more mature than he really is. So I'm looking out for mature, any sign of him being mature. Seems, speculation, seems mature. Describes the frustration felt by Duncan's father. Frustration. I'm looking for synonyms for frustration. I'm remembering that. Says number 46. Says that Duncan is on course to reach a high point in his profession. So I'm looking out for anything that talks about a high point in his profession. Any synonyms. Suggests that Duncan caught up with his teammates in terms of physical development. Teammates, physical development. Okay, explains how Duncan was a good all-round sportsman. So he could do a lot of different sports. Gives an example of how Gavin reassured his son. I'm looking for keyword for synonyms of reassurance. Mentions Duncan's current club's low opinion of him at one time, at a specific time, at a time at least, and a low opinion as well. Mentions a personal success despite a failure for the team. Personal success, failure. Explains how Duncan and his father are fulfilling a similar role as well. Okay, Duncan and his father, similar role. These are all my keywords. All right. So, can you remember what you did in part 6? Okay, and in part 5, all these things help. Is when it's impossible for you to remember all of this text. So what you have to do is to summarize each piece of text in order to quickly be able to connect to that text through the questions you have. Okay, now we are going to take a moment, and could you please try to summarize, just for now, paragraph A. Try to summarize paragraph A. If you have time, you can do B too. All right. So I'm going to read through them. The time I need to read through them, that is the time you have as well. And you need to write summaries next to each paragraph. Take some time, and we will continue when I'm finished reading. Alrighty then, very good. So in theory, you've read through both of them, not in too much detail, but enough for you to summarize every paragraph. Remember that normally the most important information is either at the beginning or at the end, sometimes both beginning and end of each paragraph. Okay, so let's look. Here are my summaries. Okay, paragraph A, he was a gifted sportsman. Okay, he had a choice of football or education. That was the choice basically he had to make. And then in B, difficult start, improved ability as well. And my summary of this paragraph as well. Okay, I don't know. Your summaries might be slightly different than mine. You don't have to have exactly the same as I do, but they have to be closely related at least. Okay, so now Now that you have summarized your paragraphs, you can read paragraph A again in more detail. Okay, go through all the questions by looking at the keywords you underlined. Okay, write A. A is one option. You have 4 options: A, B, C, or D. Next to all the questions you think A belong to. Okay, so in other words, here you have all the questions. Okay, go one back. All right. So, and you have your summaries as well. Okay. But you're going to first start and focus on A. You're going to read, you have underlined the keywords as well. So you are going to try to connect those keywords or synonyms that you have underlined with the summary that you made and possibly any other connections you can find. And you're going to write A in all the options you think are possible, in all the questions. So you might read through them, you look at your keywords, you look at your summary, and you only focus on this paragraph, you only focus on A now, and you would write A here, here, and here. For example, maybe you have 2 or 3 or 4. Okay, so you have written A in all the ones you think are possibly connected. So I did that. I found that I could write A in 43 and in 48. The keywords for 43 and 48, and here's my summary, states how surprised the writer was at Duncan's early difficulties. Okay, so, and then B explains how Duncan was a good all-round sportsman. So I wrote A in these two. Now, let's continue. Here are the connections. Okay. In 43, states how surprised the writer was at Duncan's early difficulty. And the connection would be, in the text here, you would find it is with some disbelief, surprised, career nearly all over before it began. Early difficulties, nearly all over before it began. This is referring to early difficulties. Okay, so 43 is definitely A, and we have the connections in the text. Surprised, disbelief, okay, early difficulties, nearly all over before it began. And in 48, the connection explains how, the question is, explains how Duncan was a good all-round sportsman. Where's the connection? Remember, gifted sportsman. The connection, the exact connection, in the text, it would be blah, 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 football, rugby, and cricket. Early talent in all these sports. All-round sportsman, early talent in all these sports. So these are the connections that say exactly that 43 and 48 would be answered as A. Okay, so going back, 43, this would be A. 48 would be A. So now we're finished with A. Now we can continue to B, and we would repeat the same process. You would, obviously, you have your summary here, you have your keywords here. You would try to connect your keywords with your summary. Remember that you have paraphrasing and synonyms. You read this paragraph in more detail, and you write B in all the ones you think are B. Okay, and then you would do the same with C and the same with D. It is possible that when you're finished, you might have one or two that are blank because you couldn't find a connection. In that case, if you don't have any more options or you can't find the connection, and these are your last two, for example, you don't have time as well either, you guess. You have 25% chance of guessing it right. Okay, so you have nothing to lose. Don't leave it blank. All right, so now you would repeat this process for every passage until you have answered all the questions. Please make sure you find a connection. Okay, remember that they use paraphrasing and synonyms as well. Okay, and remember that if you've answered questions, unanswered questions left at the end, take a guess. Don't leave any questions unanswered. Okay, friends and family, well done. You have successfully finished the reading and use of English, all 7 parts. Congratulations. You have learned a lot of strategies. Well done. So you can use these strategies and you can practice. You have plenty of practice tests all on the internet for free. Practice them, use these strategies, use these techniques. The more you practice, the better you will become and the higher your score will be on the day you take your first certificate test, your exam. Okay, so we're going to move on to the writing part now. See you there. Here we go.